Good morning. I'll call to order the Ottawa City Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 15th. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Clayton is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Crowley,
Present?
Commissioner Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore,
Present.
and Commissioner Van Layden.
Present.
All right, that makes four of us, so we have a quorum. I'd like to welcome everybody, whether you're here in person or you're listening to us on some form of medium. We'll start today with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by our invocation by Pastor Michael Schooley from Crosspoint Community Church. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for the privilege today. Heavenly Father, we come to you, and your word says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. We need the divine counsel and wisdom that only you can share. We pray for your direction. May you give a spirit of discernment as well as its enlightenment. We pray that you orchestrate everything that's said and done today. May it all be done for the glory of God and for the honor of our country. We ask it in Jesus' name and thank you for it. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. That'll move us on to item 6, which is our consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from our July 8th regular meeting and our agenda approval. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. We'll move on to item 8, since 7 has no business to perform. Item 8 is public comment. Do we have any registered?
We have 9 registered.
9. Can we have the first public comment?
Greg Hernandez.
Yes, my name is Greg Hernandez. I live at 1024 North Mulberry, Ottawa, Kansas. Today I'm here for the downtown master plan. I commend this city council for the 3 groups that were interviewed for this project. As a mechanical engineer working in Kansas City, I've worked with all of these groups. They're all very qualified. And I've worked with them all. They're very good. I want to make sure that in the selection process, the city is very vigilant about making sure that the city has a lot of public comment on how this needs to go. Because in reality, we are living with it, and we want to be proud of our city. There's a lot of things of Ottawa that we should be very proud of that we don't pay much attention to. We have 2 universities. We have a community college and OU. We have a golf course for those that golf. We have celebrations such as Power of the Past and the car show. We also have the Rails to Trails. At first, when they first came up, I thought that was BS. I use it all the time now. I am very, very physically want to get out there on that trail. We have parks, Forest Park, Haley Park, City Park, the park on 15th and Main, also the skate park for the kids. These are all draws. These are all draws that could maybe be incorporated into the downtown renovation. We have the Gulfport Activity Center. I love that center. It's very affordable. It's very good for Ottawa. We're all trying to maintain our health. That is a great place to go to. We have Advent. A lot of small towns like Ottawa don't have a hospital. We are blessed to have Advent. We have the Municipal Auditorium. Even though it's not used as much as we normally would want to, it's still a very good activity place. We have, as far as work, we have work here. We have distribution centers, American Eagle, Walmart. These hire people locally, and I'm very proud that somebody can come to Ottawa and find a job. So I commend the city. I commend the city for that selection. I personally, since I've worked with all 3 of these groups as a professional engineer, in the Kansas City area, RDG, Olson, and Bartlett and West. Even though I have a favorite, it's up to the city to interview them and make sure that they give Ottawa everything that we need to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Susan Hughes.
Hi, I'm Susan Hughes. I live at 1201 South Ash, and I want to talk about the data centers. I know we've shared concerns about our water supplies, the release of hazardous contaminants, and excessive noise levels. We haven't really talked a lot about increased utility rates, the glaring light issue, and what it does to property values. Farmers also report they have huge drops in animal reproduction rates because this affects animals, so it's got to affect people too. And we don't even know who's going to run this building if this does take place. Yesterday, the city of Lawrence unanimously passed a moratorium of 2 years on any data centers in that city because they said they needed time to study longer code changes. And that is what we need. This is not something we could have foreseen earlier. We've never had anything of this magnitude, both of the size of it and the scope of it and the potential dangers of this. So we need more time in order to get some adequate coding in there, some regulations that we can be sure we're all safe and they can have their business and not at the expense of our health and our well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Mike Barger.
Mike Barger, 817 East 17th Terrace here in Ottawa. Have to have notes. I'm rapidly approaching 76 and the mind doesn't work as well. So really, I'm here today to first thank you for your service. I know that you spend a lot of time on this job and it impacts your family, your regular job. So thank you for doing this job. And I apologize for not being here earlier. Only thing we have left are a couple of windows installed and the yard light, and we're caught up on the tornado. And so the tornado and what transpired during that's what I'm here to talk about. I don't know how the city could have done anything better than what they did, especially in our neighborhood, Orchard Heights. We've talked about it as neighbors, and it's just amazing. Just to give you a little what happened. One, DJ, I saw him here. I think he spent a whole day, that first day, in the neighborhood. I'd see him around talking to neighbors, asking what the city can do to help them move along. The police department and area law enforcement, 2:30 in the morning, I had a wellness check by an officer. Couldn't quite get to the porch for all the tree limbs on the porch, but he stopped and checked on us. And I know that they kept the sightseers out of the neighborhood. It was a health benefit for the insurance adjusters and agents. They actually had to walk into the neighborhood rather than being able to drive. Fire department, we did not the city service, but the gas company. They were through around midnight or a little after checking for leaks. Had my wellness check with the police department about 3:30, I think, in the morning. I don't know who it was from the city, but there were a group of people going down the streets, flashlights, looking at stuff, what's going to have to be done the next day. 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, front end loaders were in trying to push the biggest stuff out of the way so we could get up and down our streets. I can't begin to guess how many hours were put in by the city getting us back up. The only thing that's really different now, I actually feel like I live on the plains rather than my suburban neighborhood because we lost 5 oak trees that look like that. Sorry to take time here. Okay. Oh, there's what group, and I'm not even sure who this was, whether it was city related, or may have been the university. But somebody came through, a bunch of young people with snacks, water, helping. Kids showed up from the university. I know that was a university with chainsaws and stuff to help everybody that was trying to recover. And so that's all. I guess that's all I have. I just want to come in and personally say thank you for everything the city's done for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Barb Wonderly.
I'm short. Okay, I'm going to read this because I have no way of memorizing it. I'm Barb Wonderly at 2881 Nevada Terrace. My husband and I have spent significant amount of money investing in Ottawa and our farm. We pay a significant amount of taxes to Franklin County in and out of city limits. Ottawans should be represented properly after the city council members hear the concerns and pleas from its citizens, especially about an intrusive business in our community. Their vote should reflect that. It's no different than a congressman listening to his or her district and voting accordingly. It just can't be your wants and needs. We own land in rural Franklin County, and we had to go through a similar fight with industrial wind turbines and industrial solar, and so far the Franklin County commissioners have listened and placed a moratorium on the issue. We were hoping they would nix it so these companies will move on. But at least they listened and gave us all some time. Why can't the city commissioners do the same? They should do their homework or get someone to explain the negatives of the data centers and why the center developers want to put them in small towns, rural land set aside for farming, crops, or ranching. They also must be forced to control the sound. It will emit by spending money to build a soundproof system. The truckers spending night at Love's will not be able to sleep and may never overnight again, thus hurting Love's business. I don't want to be at Walmart once a week hearing that crap in the air. What about all the businesses and hotels close, by whose business will suffer? Do you city council members even care? I may even hear that noise. There is word out there that these data centers and their servers will be obsolete in no less than 5 years, up to 10 years. What then? They desert these buildings and servers. They leave Ottawa with a mess to clean up. Some data centers are putting their combustion turbines / power generators on mobile trailers to bypass the regulations. You all should be aware of their sneaky and deceptive tactics. The state of New York just passed a statewide ban on data centers for 1 year. At the very minimum, pass 5-year moratorium on these things. Hopefully they'll leave if you make them do studies for the next 5 years. You, all of you. If you pass this and allow these data centers, you and your children in this town will have a scarlet letter on their foreheads, just like the Curry family. The people who told you no will not forget who said yes to these data centers. Rightfully so, especially when the town dies. Do you want to be a hero or a zero? Thank you.
Thank you, Barb.
Tina Bennett.
Good morning. My name is Tina Benoit, and I represent the household located at 1702 South Chestnut Street in Ottawa. Me and my husband would like to be on record that we do not support the building of a data center in Franklin County. Our concerns are as follows. How many centers will there be and how big? The noise pollution? What type of power generation will be used? How are they going to manage the fluctuations in power usage? They may have to disconnect suddenly to protect their servers. What happens then? Will there be where will the discharge go? Will it create brownouts or blackouts? The citizens will have to bear the brunt of these situations. The electrical consumption use, the discounted rates of electrical usage that may happen regardless of any rates or anything that have been agreed upon. The special tax incentive that has been given to this corporate entity. Citizens never get these. Lack of long-term data regarding the sustainability of the center. And there's lack of long-term data regarding the impact to the environment, like water, land, air, your animals, the benefit and the cost to communities. And then Who pays for infrastructures for the data, such as sewer lines, road maintenance, all of that? The taxpayers, construction techniques, and the contractors. And then who will provide the labor to build this? And how many and where do they come from? If they are foreign, where will they be housed? Water usage required to sustain operational capability and the removal and treatment and or storage of wastewater. I would like to see the evidence that you have seen that gives you comfort in the comfort level that you willingly made the decision to sell this land to this company that is going to build the data center. We can't even build a shed without meticulous oversight from the town so that we can be taxed even more. How can $1 million industry be allowed to build without even more care and scrutiny than even a home within the county? It is a double standard, and it is a double standard, and if it's not, show me how that it isn't. We want to be able to trust elected officials and not have multi-million-dollar deals secured without full disclosure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tina.
Polly Schemer.
Polly Steamer, 3332 Rock Creek Road. I think I have heard from projections by the city that this might be a $2.6 billion project. So quite, and I'm concerned about the financial risks that are entailed when Ottawa considers a project of that size. This will dwarf Ottawa's capacities to, what if Ottawa and the company disagree on something? How can you, maybe you're going to get sued because they know you can't possibly defend yourself against a corporation that has that kind of resources. So anyway, that's one thing I want to say. The other thing I want to emphasize is Ottawa is just totally not prepared with any sort of specific, measurable, and enforceable regulations for the detail required for a data center, any usage of Ottawa's utility facilities. You need very specific, enforceable, it has to be measurable and enforceable regulations that needs to be done beforehand. This is not something you should be negotiating in a contract. This should be for any data center that wants to come. They will be, of course, then expect after this, if this project goes through, they will be expecting all the same things that you gave, whatever that you gave Lightfield. It's just, I think, a big financial risk for the city that I don't want to take. Haven't heard anything about decommissioning studies. So I want to leave you with something that occupational therapists always say. So I know an occupational therapist. Things must be specific, measurable, and they, in order to show you anything about what's actually happening. So those things are in the code. When you say noise in a code, that doesn't cut it. When you say nuisance, doesn't cut it. Although I appreciate what the city manager, the presentation he gave about what is in the Ottawa Code. They have specifics about architectural guidelines, but no specifics about the things that really are going to matter for this data center project. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly.
Eileen Spickler.
Good morning. My name is Eileen Spickler, and I live at 601 South Burr Street, Lot 24. First of all, I appreciate what you're doing. I'm frustrated because I think we all have been doing the due diligence that you all should have done while this was going on. And so that's why there's so much pushback. You have to understand developers are coming to the Midwest. They are now treating powered land parcels with permits, utility commitments, and grid interconnection already secured as a tradable asset class, independent of any structure built on them. And so Proximity Park, with its existing infrastructure and state identification as a top candidate by the state, fits this profile exactly. We are not being approached as a community. We are being approached as a pre-permitting opportunity, and I'd say a commodity. These are our tax dollars, which also pay for your minimal salary. I realize you all don't get a whole lot. You do this because you love our community. But, you know, the definition of a public servant or public service is a commodity or service such as public transit, education, or healthcare funded by taxpayer dollars and guaranteed to the public to ensure a basic quality of life. From all the research that's been done, it sounds to me like, and from what I've spoken, I have friends who live in Northern Virginia, not far, not in Loudoun County, because that's the area that I'm from. It's terrible. It is absolutely horrific. And I think, I really, really hope that you are truly listening to what we're saying. The same industry is also rooting around communities like ours. Someone alluded to that. It's called XFRA, SPAN, NVIDIA, and Pulte Group, like Bill Pulte Group in the cabinet, are mounting AI computer nodes on the outside of newly built homes. And I have all this information if you wish to have it. I've got all the documentation, all the websites. I can email it to you if you'd like me to, but I need to know that you want me because I understand that emails aren't really forwarded that. I don't understand. At any rate, they're trying to bypass the zoning and transmission bottlenecks to slow these hyperscale projects. Fernando de Leon, the founder of a $10 billion real estate firm, told CNBC there haven't been any exits above $4 or $5 billion. You haven't seen the comps. I don't know what that means in tech talk, right, or money talk. But what it means is that his concern is that data centers are being built at $10 billion valuations, as other people have alluded to, but there are no comparable sales above $4 to $5 billion to validate those prices. It matters for Ottawa because it raises the question of what financial commitments Lightfield Energy has actually made. We're not real clear on any of this, and we really, really need to know because the 300-acre Proximity Park site is a shovel-ready asset. It's a community asset. These are our tax dollars. Festus, Missouri did vote out 4 of its incumbents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eileen.
Sandy, music?
I'm Sandy Music, and I live at 635 North Hemlock, and I'm here today asking for your help. I hear so many things from people that say we're getting taxation without representation, and they just feel so frustrated. They have no one to talk to. They don't know what's going on. We need your help. Like I say, I've been praying and praying about this. We're just asking for you to please consider our feelings. The other day, last Wednesday, when you discussed the possibility of changing downtown, I thought it was wonderful that they had 3 presentations. And I thought to myself, my gosh, Proximity Park is so much more important than a downtown revival. And it wasn't even discussed in front of the public. All we're asking for is some representation and some consideration. I truly feel you all care about Ottawa. And it will be once poison's in water, you can't get it back. It's there. I have little great-grandchildren that live in the 3-mile radius, and I look at their sweet faces, and I think, please, don't let this happen to our beautiful city. I saw on Facebook where a lady moved here in 2025. She said if she had any idea, she would not have moved to Ottawa. Do we want this for our city? I don't think so. I think we want people that love and are proud of our city, and we're just asking for your help.
Thank you, Sandy.
Brooke, Sheets?
Good morning.
I first want to say thank you to Zach because I believe he's in Topeka attending a training and a connection for database and other networking so that he can be more informed. My name is Brooke Sheets. I'm from 1409 South Elm. I sent an email to our city manager, city clerks, and all of our commissioners on July 1st. And so I'm just going to highlight some things as I have not heard back from any of you. So just this week, surrounding areas are passing moratoriums, Lawrence and Topeka. To close the loopholes that we have in our city and maintain local control over the community's infrastructure, the city must implement an immediate 2-year moratorium on specific applications. This pause must take place in order to draft and adopt the following permanent zoning updates. We need to establish explicit definitions for data centers, crypto mining operations, BESS installations, and add these into our writings for our zonings. We need to enforce some type of specific measurable dBA noise limits, mandate a 100% closed loop cooling system, evaporative water loss, require developer funded hazard mitigation plans and decommissioning plans as well. Ensure long-term safety and financial stability for the city of Ottawa for all of our constituents and surrounding areas. We must rely on we must rely on the biased self-funded studies that provide the developer applicants. During the proposed moratorium, the city should explicitly retain independent third-party expert witnesses to evaluate the following. Acoustic engineers will come in and do low-frequency noise resonance from the continuous 24/7 cooling infrastructure that will run, because they are going to be natural gas run generators that will run 24/7. There will be no downtime. A hydrologist will come in and run utility grid experts, will run cumulative impact and industrial cooling for the Ottawa City Municipal Water Supply. Industrial fire suppression specialists will come in and help run volunteer and municipal fire code to make sure that we have proper training, specialized chemical equipment, the proper water volume control to mitigate any type of catastrophic BESS thermal runaway events. And environmental engineers will come in to make sure that we have safe and local residents for their livestock, our health, and environmental studies to eliminate any type of wastewater management burden that could happen. I provided all of this in legal framework for you that is modeled after other municipal pauses around the area. I urge you to take immediate action, protect Ottawa's resources, utilities, and its citizens. Thank you for your leadership, your time, and your dedicated service to the city of Ottawa. I urge you to step forward before a plan is produced and to do the right thing for the citizens of Ottawa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brooke. That'll move us on to item 9, which is our declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Item 10 is unfinished business. We have none, so we'll move on to item 11, which is our new business, item 11A.
2027 proposed budget review.
City staff will present further discussion of the 2027 proposed budget. Good morning, Director Landis.
Good morning. All right, so just a quick review. To date, we've had several budget conversations, and we're focused on 2027, and then the next 2028 budget as well is in the bulk of your materials that you've received. In the packet, you'll see a lot of detail about every one of the funds that are being discussed, but what we wanted to focus on today are those funds that are kind of remaining that we haven't discussed to date that had some sort of impact either from sales tax or from property taxes, and we needed some additional conversation that we had last week with you about where we might head with those funds. So we wanted to produce some more conversation about that today. As a reminder, we're finishing up some of our conversation today, the two items, though, that are following this are considering a resolution that will set the notice for Franklin County, which would determine if you desire to exceed the revenue neutral rate. It would set a maximum mill rate that we would approve or adopt at your final public hearing, and then also direct publication of that public hearing date. In the future, between now and September 2nd, we'll have an additional conversation about the general fund and community service fund, which includes your community partner applications that you received and have reviewed earlier in this season. And then on September 2nd, we'll hold both of those public hearings and consider adoption of a budget. The risk management fund is one that we talk about frequently in the regard of insurance and the cost of insurance, but really the fund itself does cover it's here to safeguard our public assets and our resources through the use of insurance and claims management. There's several types of expenditures that are located in this fund, but it is funded by equal transfers from your major funds, which are your general fund, water, electric, and wastewater. Some of the expenses in this fund include 3.5% increase for property and casualty policies. And then additionally, we've had additional conversations about flood insurance, if you recall, earlier this year, and how we wanted to fund those buildings, or how we wanted to cover those buildings that are in the flood plain. And we determined that we had reduced some of that flood insurance coverage. However, we talked about creating a reserve in this fund so that in the future, we would have it available for any of those uninsured claims that might come to us. And so as we build towards that, we're adding roughly $90,000 to that reserve annually. It will take a significant period of time to do so. So as a result, we continue to make those transfers in from each of those major funds. You won't see any reductions in any of those funds because the transfers continue to increase by roughly 10% annually to build this reserve. Oops. The quality of life sales tax is, this was put in place or renewed earlier this year. And it's the 1 cent sales tax that was going to sunset in June of 2024. And by vote of the referendum was approved to continue that 1 cent sales tax. 1/2 of that 1 cent is intended for quality of life future projects. And so this fund is really a new fund you haven't had in the past. And this is where we would receipt those revenues into, beginning with anything that's receipted or comes to us after July 1. So it would be, I guess, allocated to this fund beginning July 1. You won't see any actual receipts come in for the next 2 months, but then it'll start to accumulate here. Recently, we had a conversation in a study session about how we wanted to use these funds going forward and the types of projects that we wanted to focus use of the sales tax. The project categories are listed there on the right, and so we've identified those 4 major project types as parks and pools, pavement, public safety, and power and water. And when we had our discussion, we talked about what would we do with those receipts between 27 to 29, and then for the following 10-year increments after that. And as you'll see in our next discussion for our special streets fund, you'll see that some of those funds will be transferred into there for our pavement management plan. And then we still will have further conversations about how to allocate some of those funds and to which projects for the rest of these project categories. You will have an amended 2026 budget coming to you between now and the adoption of this budget, simply because this fund doesn't exist today. The vote hadn't happened when we adopted the 2026 budget. So we'll bring that to you. It'll have its own public hearing. It's simply to set up this fund so that it could have budget authority to spend. Once you start receiving funds in, then you would have the option to spend from that fund yet, even in 2026 if needed. This is really just highlighting for you our conversation that we had at the study session. So assuming that everything stays the same or relatively flat in our sales tax projections, We expect to bring in roughly 725,000 in 2026 over those last 4 months of the year. And then additionally, we've estimated a roughly 2.1 million. We do have a relatively flat sales tax now. And so we're proposing that this budget is based on that going forward. Of course, that can change and will change annually depending upon the spend and any additional or new retail businesses that come into Ottawa. But for now, for planning purposes, this is our best estimate. Again, it will gain some investment income, and then we've kind of prioritized the spend of those dollars based on those project categories that we had talked about before. I do want to point out that one of the most immediate discussions that we'd had was for the pavement preservation plan, and you'll see that budgeted as a transfer. So that amount will go for the years of 27, 28, and 29. That'll be a transfer directly to the special streets fund, and then those dollars will accompany the amount that we'd set aside from in that fund to also be spent towards mill and overlay projects. In our special streets fund, this fund is really intended for the purpose of street preservation and reconstruction. These includes expenses such as pothole repairs, base stabilization, hot mix asphalt, paint striping for crosswalks, turning lanes, and parking stalls, and then full depth concrete repairs, chip and seal, asphalt patching, and then our mill and overlay projects we've discussed. The major funding sources that come into this fund are some special highway dollars, which is fuel tax. Those come directly from the state. We do receive some federal exchange dollars. Those are actually a reimbursement for funds spent in the previous year. And there's a method or formula at the state level as to how you can attain those dollars. And then as we just discussed, the quality of life sales tax would be coming into the special streets fund, all to fund that street preservation project plan. There on the right, you can see that those transfers in from that quality of life sales tax that are planned. The pavement preservation plan that was put in front of you as a discussion item, that was largely driven by our mission mobility software, which we implemented in 2024, and that evaluated our pavement conditions and then put together a plan for how we might be able to tackle those mill and overlay projects, and then also design any future reconstruction projects that would need to take place in the future. This chart at the top really represents just your revenues and your expenditures. This is discussed more extensively in the memo that was in the packet, but the highlights here are that we would be putting roughly 1.72 million towards street rehabilitation over the next couple of years, and then spending roughly 60,000 towards our annual striping and dust control programs, and then in 27 and 28 using basically spend down of the funds that have accumulated here over the past couple of years to design some of those major roadway reconstructions. And then we can determine at that point how we'll be able to fund those reconstruction projects. So as you see on the right bottom, the blue is your expenditures rising. That's a result of our discussion just now. You'll see that fund balance start to dip down. That's what we're spending some of those dollars that have accumulated in this fund, as well as spending the transferred funds from your quality of life sales tax as well. Another fund that we hadn't discussed to date is the golf course. The city purchased the 9-hole Ottawa golf course in 2022 when we assumed operation and management on January 1st of 2025. In the beginning stages of the operations of the course, we assembled a team, and we have a team of dedicated professional staff at the golf course, as well as seasonal staff that supplement both the pro shop and for course maintenance. Our early results for 2026, keep in mind, this is our second season under our management. Just in the second quarter or through the second quarter, we've been able to see a 30% increase in participation and through those programming, new programming options, and the engagement of not just the community, but those outside of our community, inviting them back to the golf course, and then growing the interest from our from those groups that may not have played as much before. Everything from our youth groups and putting new programming into schools through their physical education programs and encouraging ladies events as well as new tournament opportunities for those that are looking for ways to supplement their outside organizations, as well as just some of the tournaments that we have put in place just to encourage and invite those people from outside the community to come play.
Yeah, Director Landis, on that 30% increase on the second, is that quarter year over year from same, I mean, 30% increase from last year's second quarter?
It would be year to date through the second quarter for both 26 over 25.
Okay, so that's a pretty good increase.
It is a big increase. And also, keep in mind in 25, we controlled operations. By the time we brought that revenue online, it was March of that year, because remember, the revenue went back to the previous management company prior to that. However, just participation in general, you can see in the green fees and the cart rentals and the programming that has gone in place, that you can see those increases. That'll also be highlighted in your quarterly report that you receive in August for Q2.
Great, thanks.
So we do consider continue to supplement the golf course as we do other services that we provide, amenities in the community through transfers from the general fund and the economic development fund in this case. You see about roughly $110,000 in growth in sales. Also, you have growing expenditures as well, just like any fund, both through personnel and some of those contractual and just course maintenance expenditures that occur, keeping that course at a playable level. Moving on to our mill levy funds, the first one that we wanted to bring to you is our library fund, and we haven't had an opportunity to discuss this yet. And so Director Chartier is here to talk through the details of the budget that the library board has put together and submitted to you for consideration. As a reminder, the funding flow for this fund is that Franklin County collects the taxes on behalf of the city and the library. It is distributed to the city of Ottawa, and we turn around and distribute that back to the library for their use. And they do have mill levy authority that was established through the charter ordinance of a maximum of 10 mills. And then the library board does meet prior to this, and they are the same timeline that we are, to put together a budget and submit to the city to be included in your overall mill rate. The yellow box at the bottom is a summary of the state budget form, and I'm going to let Director Chartier talk you through the next 2 slides on the detail of their budget.
Good morning. All right, so every year we look at our budget and we do a lot of detailed studying of each line item. This year we were able to keep our mill levy flat. We looked at other options, and ultimately with the increase in different line items like salaries and benefits and the cost of our accounting software, we decided that we needed to keep it even. I know that you guys do have the memorandum that I sent to City Manager Thatcher and you honorable city commissioners. I wanted to highlight a little bit of that. Ottawa Library has always been good stewards of taxpayer funds. We have been a City of Ottawa partner for 154 years. We have to meet 2 state requirements to receive state funds and Nichols funds. The Nichols primary budget requirements for accreditation is that we have 65% of our expenditures on staff and benefits, which is pretty normal for most organizations to spend at least that much. We have to spend a minimum of 12% on our materials of our expenditures. We also have to have a minimum of 2 full-time employees with masters in library science. and one full-time employee for technical support. We also have to meet several qualifications from the city, and that, of course, she already talked about the 10 mil limit. We are presenting a mill of 8.594. We meet with the financial director annually and discuss our budget. We also have decreased our uncollected tax estimate from 5% to 2.5% in the last 3 years. We are committed to excellent staffing. I think that anybody that walks into the library will tell you that we have excellent staff who are committed to the community and our community members. And we also are dedicated to using volunteers when possible. As the executive director of Ottawa Library since October of 2011, I have continued to do 2 roles for the library as the business manager and the executive director, which at the time when we made that decision would have put us over the 10 mil limit if we wouldn't have done that because of the way the financials were going for the community as a whole at the time, and I have continued to do both roles. Other changes, QuickBooks has a substantial cost increase. They used to be very user-friendly for small businesses and for libraries. I think we used to pay $25 a year to have QuickBooks. Now we pay probably $3,000 a year between the QuickBooks software and the payroll part of that. We have decreased our automation cost. We had used QuickBooks for our direct deposit for paychecks, and that cost had increased substantially each payroll. So we switched that, and now we do ACH with our local bank. So our cost is now substantially less, actually less than $50 a month, which is a huge savings for us. And you will see that reflected in the budget. The Neighborhood Revitalization Program is estimated to deduct about $45,000 from our budget this year. That is not reflected in the budget that you see. We just know that going forward that we have to keep that in mind. We do have a capital improvement fund. That capital improvement fund includes donations. It also includes lease payments. The statute allows us to put 10% annually into that capital improvement fund. We do try to look at that, and if we can't do 10%, do as much as possible to help us with keeping reserves. Also, we have an endowment fund. That endowment fund was established in 1971. It became a 501c3 organization in 2010. Tax funds are not allowed to be put into that endowment fund. It is established to support the future of the Ottawa Library. Money deposited must be normal to the fund's operations and purpose. We also accept donations and memorials for the library in that fund. We have a Friends of the Ottawa Library that was established in 1973. They are also a 501c3 organization. They completely support our summer reading program for teen, children's, and adults. They donate to the Franklin County Literature Festival, and that festival actually came under their umbrella in November of 2017. And we're very proud to continue that festival with the committee of Friends members and Ottawa Library staff members. They advocate and fundraise for the library. They also accept donations and memorials and have memberships. They have a bookstore that is open Mondays, 1 to 2:30, and the first and third Saturday, 9 to noon, just down the alley from here. We also have returned to having the annual Skunk Run book sale. We started that back up in 2024 because we have been blessed with a huge amount of donations, and we wanted to bring that back, and we're able to hold that at our Walnut Street location, which has been wonderful. As you do look at our budget, you will see a decrease in our materials line item. That is a reflection of a decrease in some of our expense line items that will allow that 12% expenditure to decrease. Our automation support, which I already talked about, decreased. Computer software increased. We've had 2 people go through the Masters in Library Science program, and they have completed that program or are near completion. So we decreased our professional meetings and expenses line because of that. And then I always give you guys a pie chart that has been requested of us just to kind of see where we are on our card holders. So on the pie chart, it shows that City of Ottawa individuals that have cards are 66%. Franklin County, which are people that don't live in the city but live in Franklin County, are at 22%. And those that are not city or county members are at 12%, which we, as a Nichols Library, are tasked with welcoming everybody to the library, which we would do whether we were required to or not, just because we want to welcome people to our community. And some of those card members could be people that work here but maybe live outside of Franklin County. And I will answer any questions.
I see some information on a grant prospects. Can you update that any more than that, or is that where we're at on these?
So we always look at grants, and we're continuously all year long doing that. We will look at grants from the state level or the Nichols level, or anyone else that happens to come up with a grant that might meet one of our needs. We do not include those grants in our budget because those are not guaranteed. And if we did, we'd have to include the expenses too. So it would just be an offset. And if we include the expenses, then I've got to increase my materials expenditure by 12%. So, and when we do our 12% to Nichols, they do allow us to deduct those one-time items. So,
Good job, thanks.
yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions for Director Chartier?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the points that she made was related to the balancing act that it takes, making sure that you can keep a level mill rate, but accounting for your delinquencies in property taxes or unpaid property taxes, as well as the values of the NRP program. And so this year was particularly challenging. I feel like we spent a lot of time going back and forth trying to make sure that we could prepare something, and Director Chartier did a great job of putting it together in a fashion that could at least meet a level mill rate for their fund. But I will say, I guess, reaffirm that she will expect that everything that she plans to bring in will be reduced roughly by $44,000, $45,000 for the NRP program. And 5 years ago, when the value of the properties within that program were so much lower, it was fairly insignificant for each one of our funds. And so we didn't really have to focus on trying to reduce that out of the available dollars to fund each program. But now that has grown to over $5 million of valuation in that NRP program, we definitely have an impact to each one of those funds. So it is a balancing act. So I want to thank her for putting some time and effort into trying to find a way to make that work, to prepare a level budget. The next mill levy fund that we have is our OMA, and Director Evans is here too, and she can answer any questions you might have about the OMA. But to give you some broad overview, the OMA was built in 1918. It opened its doors in 1921. And our operations now include everything from live performances, special programming, private events, and educational initiatives. And that center is busy all the time. They do have a charter ordinance that allows for them to budget up to 2 mills for operations, plus 1 mill for capital improvement. Right now, we're sitting at a total of just under 1.8 mills for the OMA altogether, and that includes all of those costs. The revenue that's generated for support of all of these programs is from rental fees, our ticket sales, sponsorships, concessions and merchandise, and then our grants, which they've been able to bring in a couple of operational grants, which are typically not easy to attain, and then also the use of ad valorem or property taxes as well to support The building repairs over the past several years have been a challenge. In a building this old, as you can imagine, everything seems to happen at one time, and so we're still in the process of tackling some of those building repairs and some of those larger maintenance items, everything from the HVAC and boiler system down to the minor details in the building. Some of those repair costs and capital investments have been pushed to other funds that are typically used for other services across the city in an effort to rebuild their fund balance in this fund. So in the past years, I think if you'll remember the conversations we've had about the fund balance really being too low to support an operation like this. And as you can see up there in the right-hand corner, as we've been able to divert some of those expenses to other places for a short period of time, we've been able to build, or at least our projections show a build of that fund balance to a little bit better manageable level. And so at some future point, we'll be able to start bringing some of those expenditures back over to this fund, because even though it does receive property taxes, it doesn't receive enough to offset all of the expenditures that they experience. Some of the revenue highlights are that they've expanded their services over the past couple of years, everything from the public programming and private reservations, such as wedding receptions and milestone celebrations. And then they've had strong revenue growth in all of those areas for ticket sales. And some of the revenue highlights is just since 2025, total revenues have grown roughly 20%, and we're estimating an additional 1.1% for the 2028 budget. Our debt service fund is the fund that makes the payments for any general obligation debt that you have. It is funded primarily by transfers in from other funds that would be paying for the expenses of those debt issuances, as well as property taxes. And in your 2027 budget, you'll see that the 2017B and the 2019A issuances are maturing, and so those payments will go away. And then it's predicted at a relatively flat mill rate here, just slightly less than it is this year for 2026, simply because those property tax supported debt payments are reducing slightly overall. But for all the payments that are due, your outstanding balances for December 31 of 26 is just over $11 million. But the payments for 2027 are supported by only 17.7% in property taxes. So all of those other debt issuances are supported by payments from your water, wastewater, electric funds, your special sales tax for proximity park and special streets. This table has a lot of information on it, but it's really here just as a reminder that this same information is found in the monthly, the quarterly, and the annual financial reports. And so if you're interested in the outstanding debt payments that outstanding debt that we have as a city overall, you can find that information there. Last week, we had a discussion about how to put together our total mill rate and how that would impact the general fund overall. We have put together a couple of slides here just to represent some of the conversations that we've had about the 2027 budget. However, we'll have to bring that back to you at a future date. So it depends on roughly 32% of its revenue depends on property taxes, over 40% on sales taxes, and the rest are small service or small revenue streams that come into the general fund. So in our projections, we have relatively flat sales and use tax, and franchise fee projections, as well as motor vehicle taxes, which those estimates come to us from the county. And then we have in this fund other revenue streams, our charges for service, and those are from anything from your municipal court fees to your permitting fees for community development, and there's a cemetery, some of your cemetery sales come through this fund as well, and then there's some investment income. It's also funded by transfers from your utility funds as well. And then your expenditures really range from everything from your maintaining of your current staffing levels and your benefits in order to provide these services, your contractual obligations that range from your emergency communication center contribution to supporting the fixed base operations at the airport, crisis co-responder program, any consulting services, and then our animal services contracts, as well as maintaining your city facilities. We have 10 city facilities. Some of those expenses are your HVAC services, your elevator maintenance, custodial services, and then your 12 city parks and trails that include playgrounds, tennis courts, disc golf, the pool, the splash pad, and trails, and then ongoing support for quality of life, business attraction, 25% of the property and casualty coverage, which we talked about in the risk management fund earlier, and then replacement of your essential equipment and vehicles that are used for your streets, parks, snow removal, public safety response, and then also grant dollars for capital planning matching.
Director Landis, just go back that one. Yeah, there we go. On the investment income, I see over the projection several years, we're bringing that down. And that's a smart move, I think, to stay conservative. Do you have a percentage or rate you're looking at in the future on this with regard to overnight money or?
I don't have that with me right now. Happy to
Okay,
bring that back
that's
to you
fine.
later.
We got expert people in here, I know, dealing with that. So we'll get back, we'll find out later. Thanks.
Sure. When we have the mill rate options, we had this discussion last week, but we broke it down in a little bit different fashion for you this time to talk about the property tax dollars that are available at each one of those options. So a flat mill rate generates roughly 315,000 or just under 316,000 to be spread across the 4 mill levy supported funds. So 61,000 roughly to the library, 12,000 to the auditorium, 10,000 to debt service, and then 230,000 to the general fund. The general fund expenditures, I think, grew by it's roughly, I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but overall for all mill levy funds, I think it was over $800,000 in total, just for all mill levy funds. So generating 315 from a flat mill rate doesn't quite cut it. And so we're gonna have to find other ways to come back and cut. The library is set for you already. The auditorium is pretty much at a level mill rate to support those operations and still needing some additional funds. And then your debt service fund is established based on your requirements for making those debt payments. So really the only fund that can be altered here is your general fund. What we brought to you last week was in our discussion was that we would recommend publishing a 2 mill increase. Again, publishing that mill rate does not mean that you would adopt that mill rate. So we left it here for you to just see how much that would generate. So again, I think it's roughly 800,000 over all the funds. A 2 mill increase would generate $640,000 roughly across all 4 funds. And so we still have some work to do on how we would cut back services or costs for those services or find alternative funding solutions for those. Our next item on the agenda is a little more information about those mill rates. So if you have questions about any of the funds that we've presented so far, we're happy to answer any of those questions now. And then once we move on to the next item, we'll discuss the mill rate and the setting of that notification for Franklin County in a little more detail.
Do you, just for curiosity, what's causing the biggest influx or the expenditures in the general fund? Is there anything in particular that stands out that's causing the increase?
Sure. So I think a lot of those contractual services that you don't have control over, plus your employee benefits and the cost of just employees in general,
Yeah.
is probably your biggest increase year over year in the general fund. Remember that we fund a transfer to your equipment reserve, but it's not tied to any new vehicle purchases specifically. We have a plan for using those funds to be able to replace those. So there are in those totals, that includes no new requests. There were plenty of new requests in order to expand or enhance our services that we provide the community, but in those dollars, none of those are included right now.
Okay, thanks.
Before we go on, I just want to bring up the auditorium. Director Evans, you've done a great job in making this a profitable enterprise. I've been on this dais long enough. I remember early on before you became director that we had some challenges there. And then when the high school built an auditorium, I thought we'd have some competition to have to deal with. But you've come through that in flying colors, and I just want to congratulate you and your staff for a good job of money management. Doing well.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments on the budget review? Hearing none, we'll move to item 11B.
2027 proposed budget, a resolution of indication to exceed revenue neutral rate. Director Landis.
Under the requirements of the 2021 Senate Bill 13, the governing body must communicate their intent regarding the revenue neutral rate for the 2027 budget to Franklin County no later than July 20th. It is recommended the governing body vote to exceed the revenue neutral rate, set the maximum mill rate of 46.136, and set the public hearing date for September 2nd, 2026. The commission can decide to adopt a budget with a lower estimated mill rate, but may not increase it after publication. Director Landis?
Thank you. The purpose of sending this notification to Franklin County, and just for those that are in the room, and then also those that might be listening, is that the Franklin County Clerk's Office will send out a notification to every property owner across the entire county, but specific to your decision-making here is any property within the Ottawa city limits will receive a notification that states what your considered maximum mill rate will be when you address that at your public hearing, the date for that public hearing, and then also that you intend to exceed the revenue neutral rate. So with a little bit of background here, the estimated valuation for 2026 that supports that budget is just under 164 million. That is roughly $7,100 per mill increase. At 4.5%, 4.56% increase in assessed valuation over last year. If you recall, we discussed a few weeks ago that that's down from the 10, 9, and 8% increases that you've seen over the last several years. So that generates less dollars per mill for these mill levy rate supported funds. The increases in cost supporting all of our operations across these mill levy funds is roughly $815,000. That supports your auditorium, golf course, your library, your annual general obligation debt payments, staffing and benefits, police, fire, streets, parks, facility and equipment repair, and your fleet replacement. Our average increase in expenditure levels over the past 5 years have been just over 7%. Sorry, I skipped a slide there. This is a review of our mill rate history. We've talked about this a couple of times now, but just as a review, since the revenue neutral rate process has gone in place at the state level since in 2021, our average mill levy or mill rate across or for the city of Ottawa, including the library, has been 45.38 mills. And as we consider how we will address that mill rate and what the total property tax dollars that you need to support your budget. Keep in mind that your unpaid property taxes or that delinquency does impact your services. So if you were to adopt a revenue neutral rate, for example, you're already operating in a deficit because those unpaid property taxes are assumed right off the bat, or we're not able to budget for them, but we assume that what we budget for is 100% of what we'll get. We do calculate in a delinquency rate in the state budget form, but annually it's about $247,000 that you don't receive in unpaid property taxes. And then also your appraisal appeals that are offered through the state statute opportunity through the county appraiser's office, those actual, any of those appeals that are approved, they affect your assessed valuation, which isn't finalized until October, and then also your future collections. So I think we mentioned recently that there's some appeals that total roughly $9 million in total appraised value that may not even be considered by the Board of Tax Appeals until the middle of 2027. So knowing the impact of those appeals doesn't always happen before you're setting the budget for your upcoming year.
Director Landis, on that, back on one more slide on the delinquencies, I guess is that the net out? I mean, I know when property is sold, taxes are collected. It's required at that point to get taxes collected if they're delinquent. Do we have a record of those kind of dollars coming back in, or is this a net amount annually?
So we do in your line item budget that we will provide eventually when we talk about the general fund. Just for the general fund alone, I want to say it's between 80 and 90,000 that we roughly see coming back in from delinquent property taxes. So that could be anyone who has paid late. There was a discrepancy, maybe that was in the appeals process, but they eventually ended up paying. any of those taxes that remain unpaid and come back to you, you budget for those to come in the upcoming year. Of course, you don't know how much is going to come back to you and when. So we do have conservative estimates there across all of your mill levy funds. That would be everything from the library and OMA and your debt service as well. Sure. So this is the same slide we reviewed earlier, but we wanted to address the question that was brought to us at the last meeting, which was how do each of these mill rates impact an average homeowner? I will preface this by saying every home property is different. Every home property received a different increase in their appraised value this year, and we don't have any way of knowing exactly how that would impact any one property owner. But to give you an idea of how property taxes are calculated and what the impact might be for a home of $250,000, you would take the appraised value times the residential factor, the assessment rate, which is 11.5% for residential, and that gives you your actual assessed value. That assessed value you would divide by 1,000, and that's your factor, your amount per 1 mill. And then you would take it times your total mills to determine how much that property would have to pay in city-only property taxes. This is just for the city portion. This doesn't include the county, the school district, rec commission. We don't have access to that information yet for the 27 budget. But for a $250,000 appraised value home going into 2027, at a flat mill rate, it would they would pay roughly $1,269. For a 1 mil increase, they would see an increase of $29 for that 1 year, and for a 2 mil increase, an increase of $58 for that same year. So as an idea of just to reference, this is just an example that you can use to better understand of how that would impact a property owner at that appraised value.
Thanks for that. That's what I was trying to get to.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I knew I just didn't have it with me last week. So. And again, we are recommending that we publish at the higher amount than giving staff the opportunity to go back and see how we can make sure that we can meet the requirements there and the available dollars that can come into that general fund, and how we can try to budget for those expenditures the best we can to meet the available revenues. The impact of the revenue neutral rate that's been given to you at the Franklin County does provide you a revenue neutral rate. The way it's calculated is it is a mill rate that's generated or that generates the same amount of property taxes that you had coming to you for your 2026 budget using the new assessed property values. And so revenue neutral does not actually guarantee that the property owner's taxes stay the same. It means that we're generating the same amount of property taxes, but there are all of the other taxing entities across this community. So Franklin County, USD 290, the Extension District, the Rec Commission, they all impact that mill rate as well that impacts your property owner. Notification to Franklin County, that date of July 20th is set by state statute. And what we have to let them know is, do you intend to exceed this revenue neutral rate of 42.209? And then what mill rate are you considering, again, recommended at the 46.136, and then what your date of your public hearing will be. On the dais for you is a resolution that we would be asking for you to consider today under this agenda item. This would basically direct us to provide that notification to Franklin County. A copy of what that notification would look like was in your packet and also on the screen. Essentially, proposing a mill levy rate of 46.136, a date of September 2nd at 7 p.m. for your public hearing to be held here at City Hall. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the presentation materials. Our recommendation is that you would adopt that resolution directing notification to Franklin County and with the details that we just presented.
I don't have a question, but just a comment, because I feel like it cannot be said enough, especially regarding this item. It does not mean we are going to exceed the mill rate. It just means we could potentially go up to that level. So I just wanted to say it again. I know it was said at the beginning of the presentation, but I feel like no matter how many times you say it, it can be easily missed, so.
I think that's really important. Just,
Go ahead.
are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
It's really important because there are several factors that you do not control. So that final assessed valuation, if it were to go up or down and it's set by the county appraiser's office and it doesn't happen until October, which is after you've adopted a budget, if you were to not vote eventually to exceed the revenue neutral rate and it came in higher, there are consequences to that happening. So whether you intend to adopt a rate at 42 or 41 or lower or higher, any of those options are on the table for you when you eventually consider adoption of the budget. The idea here is that they want to notify people that you in fact could adopt a budget that is above that revenue neutral rate that's been published. And to your point, you can adopt whatever budget you want to at that rate, but the notification to the public is that you will potentially exceed that revenue neutral rate.
Can you go back to where it showed 42.209? So
Yes.
that's our revenue neutral rate today.
It is.
So we will absolutely exceed our revenue neutral rate. We kind of have to. I mean, we're operating at 44 now.
Correct.
Which is if we did not want to exceed it at the 42.2, that would be at a deficit of almost $400,000
Or more.
or more.
Yes.
Yeah, at just the 44 we're at now.
Yes.
We want,
yes.
we're and that's cutting costs to start off with. At the 45, it was just kind of breaking even. So if you're going to go 3 mills, we're almost at $600,000.
Correct.
So I hate to put it this way, we're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. It's just a matter of what we're going to be at. But certainly publishing the 46 is our kind of top, where we want to be.
Yes. And if you recall, that revenue neutral rate last year was the 44 point, roughly the 44.136. So you see how the impact occurs. So now the revenue neutral rate is 42. And if you continue to go, to meet that revenue neutral rate, you will have to make some significant cuts across those mill levy supported services.
I'm curious, have you seen the revenue neutral rate go down like this before? We've only been operating on this since 2018, I guess, but I'm surprised it went down.
It goes down every year because your new assessed value. So it's the calculation for revenue neutral is targeted to keep your property tax dollars exactly the same, not the mill rate. It's focused on the total dollars that you would bring in. So as those assessed values continue to rise, then those mill rates will continue to fluctuate downward with those rising assessed valuations.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks.
And that's back to the percentage of the assessment. So since it only went
Yes.
up 7%, obviously the mill rate or the revenue neutral rate went down. Whereas it's been going at 10 or 11%, which kind of has been able to keep us at that, revenue neutral of the 44 or what we've been for the past few years.
This year was the first year that we've actually adopted an amount of property taxes that was equivalent to the revenue neutral rate. You still voted to exceed, but we adopted something that was equal to the R&R that was given to us. In order to get there, we still had to cut into our services and transfers and the things that we would do for future planning and in order to get to that rate. But it was important to the commission at that time that we adopt something level with that revenue neutral rate. It's probably the closest that we've been in the past years to be able to do that. And, but again, it's all dependent upon those outside factors that you don't control.
I'd be surprised if any city can consistently meet revenue neutral rate, but maybe, I don't know. I don't know any others that have been able to do that. That's a good point.
We did poll we polled a lot of cities in Kansas and we got about 34 responses back. All of them, 30 of the 34 are intending to exceed their revenue neutral rate.
Commissioners, any other questions for Director Landis?
No.
How would you like to act on 11B?
I move that we approve item 11B in our agenda.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Mayor Clayton is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
I vote yes. Motion is approved. Thank you, Director Landis. That'll move us on to item 11C.
Approval to set the date for public hearing for 2027 operating budget. Director Landis.
The city is required to publish notice for the public hearing of intent to exceed revenue neutral rate and the hearing of the 2027 budget at least 10 days in advance of the hearing date. The hearing date is recommended to be set for September 2nd, 2026 at 7 p.m., and the public will have an opportunity to ask questions to give feedback to the governing body.
Thank you. This is somewhat redundant of the previous item as far as the publication of the public hearing to exceed R&R. However, we do also have to hold a public hearing for your total adoption of the 2027 budget. So really, this is just asking you to set the dates, and we won't publish that notification yet until we have a future conversation with you about what that general fund might look like and the community partner allocations in order to set a final budget or a recommended budget, if you will, that could be heard at that public hearing on September 2nd. But really the ask here is that you direct that public hearing date to be September 2nd at 7 p.m. for both the intent on revenue neutral rate and the operating budget for 2027.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make the motion, we approve item 11C on our agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Have a roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Mayor Clayton is absent, and Mayor Pro Tem Crowley.
I vote yes. Motion is approved. Thank you, Director Landis. Thank you. That'll move us on to item 11D.
Consider approval of Lakeside Estates Shared Use Path Design Agreement. Director Welsh.
Today, we'll consider the approval of a professional service agreement with BG Consultants in the amount of $12,500 for a survey, design, and bid phase services for the Lakeside Estates Shared Use Path Project, and authorize Public Works Director to execute the agreement. Director Welsh, good morning.
Good morning. So you just said a mouthful, which is exactly what my presentation is here. It's to give us authorization to proceed with design for a shared use path to be installed out at what we call the Lakeside Estates, which is an area out between 15th and 17th Street. So as said, we're recommending that approval. Those design services are going to include the survey, the engineering, and the bid phase assistance. It would be a one lump sum cost of $12,500, which would be funded through the Special Parks Fund. So Lakeside Estates was a development out of 17th Street where each of the lots sold were, the proceeds were dedicated to go towards the Special Parks Funds for the specific intent of recreational improvement in the area. So staff is proposing a 10-foot shared use path that's going to connect 15th Street through Lakeside, the Lakeside Park development, and onto 17th Street. This would utilize our special parks funds, like I'd said, with its original intent, creating a north-south connection between those two areas. It's going to improve our pedestrian and bicycle accessibility, expand the recreational opportunities for the residents on either side of that development, and establish the project scope and construction costs before we move forward. Here's a small map of what the area would look like, but the potential trail would go right. Yeah, let's see if I remember this. Maybe not. Anyway, you can see it on the left side of the map there. It would go down the west side property boundary, which would, I think now we are going to see a couple of developed houses right along 17th Street, just adjacent to what this trail would be. But we have established a pedestrian right-of-way through there, a pedestrian easement. So we would just need the approval to move forward with this design.
Director Welsh, you know what size of sidewalk we're looking at? How wide is that?
Be 10 foot. So a shared use path would need to be 10 foot wide, so that with the specific idea in mind that you would be able to use bicycles and pedestrians to be able to travel safely both directions.
Thanks.
Yep. Our strategic alignment would go under the infrastructure and stewardship of resources, investing those dedicated funds into our long-term community infrastructure, and also expanding on our recreational opportunities that would fall under our quality of life. With that, I would stand for any questions you might have.
I know we've talked about this for some time, several years ago. In fact, I think if I recall doing this, and so I think it's a great project. And it does connect 17th to 15th Street to the Goppert Building, my favorite building in town, or second favorite, I guess. City Hall's my favorite, of course. But I think it's a great idea and a great project, and it fits within our shaping our community like we've been talking about for many years. And so I'll make the motion we approve item 11D on our agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or discussion? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Clayton is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
I vote yes. Motion is approved. Thank you, Director Welsh.
Thank you.
That'll move us on to item 11E.
Consider approval of no parking ordinance for the 2300 block of South King Street. Director Welsh?
Today, we'll consider approval of an ordinance amending section 12-317 of the Ottawa Municipal Code to establish a no parking zone on the 2300 block of South King Street and correct two typographical errors in the code. Director Welsh.
Yes, so this would just be giving the approval to, excuse me, amend the ordinance that falls in section 12317 in our municipal code. It's going to establish a no parking zone on either side of the road on south of 23rd Street. So it's the little strip of, we'll get to a map in a minute. So amend that section to the municipal code, and it's going to help with improved traffic safety and roadway operations. And it is supported by both your Public Works Department and your Police Department. This thing is touchy. South King Street has experienced some increased commercial development. As you know, we've got a lot of businesses that are going out there with talk of maybe potentially adding some additional business. So that's why this is being brought to you now, so we can jump ahead of it. The on-street parking reduces roadway width availability, which creates concerns for visibility, concerns for delivery, concerns for emergency personnel to get up and down the roadway right there. As I mentioned, this is a growing commercial corridor with the local restaurants out there, the hotel that lies at the end of the roadway. As I said before, the impacts on it right now, the way that it is, with the vehicles parking on either side of the road, it reduces that roadway capacity, which creates the challenges for the delivery vehicles and our emergency personnel vehicles. So our assessment would be that no parking restrictions would open up and preserve those travel lanes. Here we go. Here's the map from 23rd Street going to the south. If I can get this to work here. Tried again and it did not work. So 23rd Street South, basically this roadway dead ends into a private parking lot. So we would just be asking to add this to amend that ordinance that would put no parking along the roadway there on King Street on either side of the road. All the way down from 23rd Street down to where the roadway ends. And then as was mentioned before, I don't have that in my slides, but it was mentioned before that it would also fix a couple of typos that we found in the ordinance. So the first one, just so that we're just being open about it, one of them read that the 1000 block of South Cedar, it is already labeled as a no parking zone, but there was no clear delineation. So we're proposing to add the word north in the described 55 feet. So just that way we were very clear on where that what is recommended there. And also on Locust Street from Wilson to the south, we've just cleaned that up so that there was a better representation of what that area is, where the no parking zone was intended. So with that, if you've got any questions, I would stand for make an attempt to answer for you.
Director Welsh, can you go back to the overhead view? I'm assuming we're talking about no parking either side all the way down, including the roundabout.
Correct.
Did you have you had businesses reach out to you with these concerns? Or is this just something that we're thinking is a good idea?
I have not personally had any business reach out to me with any concerns. I've had multiple discussions with law enforcement. They have concerns with this particular area. And we know that some of the deliveries that are coming through, you see the semis coming through there, and it's just common sense would say that it's going to be difficult to navigate through there with vehicles parking along the sides. I do believe that we've had some other businesses that are looking to potentially invest in this area. So it would just increase the traffic volume as that area develops. So that's what we're planning for.
The concern that I have, and I've seen it multiple times before, is you have individuals with either trailers that park there, and they have no other place to park. They can't pull into the parking lot of Taco Bell, or maybe the parking lot of Pizza Hut or something there. So they park, where it's a long linear parking spot, and then walk across to Taco Bell or Arby's or wherever. So I understand the concern of access, but I just also I'm concerned about the impact that it may have of deterring folks from actually wanting to stop and utilize these businesses.
Yeah, and that may be one of part of the discussion may be had, do we just put no parking on one side of the road as opposed to both? But I think the concern there is with the entries and exits coming out, the majority of them coming from the east side. If you said, okay, you can allow parking on the east side of the road, now you may be limiting that option anyway, just because if there's a driveway there, obviously you can't park in front of the driveway.
Now, does it make a difference if they're delivering something short term? I see trucks even parked on Main Street with their flashers on, delivering something in a business and only there maybe for 5 minutes.
That'd probably be more of an enforcement question rather than a question for me, but I would assume that probably doesn't make a huge difference if it's the temporary thing. And Adam, if you want to say anything, you're more than welcome to. But offloading is okay for temporary. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions for Director Welch on 11E?
No.
How would you like to act?
I think, like, for me, knowing that they could park over towards like the McDonald's area, and I know it's still across the street, where all that parking is in like kind of the prime time area, that I would be okay with this. So I move that we approve item 11E in our agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Mayor Clayton is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
I vote no, but the motion is approved. Thank you, Director Welch.
Thank you.
That'll move us on to item 11F.
Consider conditional use permit for 808 South Cypress.
Consider approval of an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for property located at 808 South Cypress Street to allow duplex in the R1 low-density residential district, with the condition that sidewalk along South Cypress for the entirety of the property is completed in ordinance with city standards. City Planner Wilms?
Yeah, so I'm going to combine the presentation for 808 and 816 Cypress because they're very similar. They will require different motions. We will, Planning Commission recommended approval of this application with the condition that the sidewalk along South Cypress for the entirety of the property is completed in accordance with the city standards. 808 Cypress is approximately 12,618 square feet, and 816 Cypress is 11,775 square feet. They're surrounded by existing development, all within the R1 district. The applicant is requesting this conditional use to allow the construction of a duplex on each property. The future land use plan indicates low density residential. So from the overhead, 808 Cypress is the northern lot and 816 is the southern lot. On the GIS, it isn't split, but those are 2 lots. This is what the current day looks like, street view. And the findings, the proposed conditional use is consistent with the intent and purpose of the zone in which it is located. The proposed duplex is compatible to other land uses in the surrounding neighborhood. The proposed duplex will not place an undue burden on the existing transportation, utility, and service facilities in the area. The proposed duplex is not necessary due to changed or changing conditions. The 808 site demolished the single-family residence and is now undeveloped. The 816 has been vacant since being created this past March. The subject property is suitable for the proposed use. Staff recommended approval. The proposed duplex is in conformance with the future land use map and the comprehensive plan, and the proposed duplex will not adversely affect the surrounding properties so long as all standards are met. And with that, once again, Planning Commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit with the condition that the sidewalk along South Cypress for the entirety of the property is completed in accordance with the city standards. And with that, I can take any questions.
Director, is this in the NRP program? Do you know this application?
I believe so.
I wasn't sure if they.
Yeah, I believe so.
Decide. And also I noticed on the application that they submitted, the conditional use application, they mentioned a 1-car garage, but the plans say 2-car. I assume that was amended to 2 cars?
Yeah, so I, just for clarification, here we're just approving the ability to put a duplex on the property. So the building plans may or may not be finalized. I believe that it is a 2-car garage plant.
I was concerned about that because there's not much parking on Cypress.
Right.
If it's 1 car, it'd be an issue. That's
Right.
all right. Different topic, I agree, but that's something I just have to make sure of on that. Okay. Well, I know we need development in town, and this certainly complies with what we're looking for in our community. So I'll make a motion, we approve 11F on our agenda.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Either one.
He's got it.
All right.
He's got it.
Motion is second. Any other discussion on item 11F? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Mayor Clayton is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
I vote yes, motion is approved. That'll move us on to item 11G.
And I will make the motion to approve item 11G.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, can I have a roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
Mayor Clayton is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
I vote yes, motion is approved. Thank you. That'll move us on to item 12, which is our comments by our city manager.
Honorable governing body, some operational highlights. Utilities replaced 300 foot of water main on 19th Street. I replaced 50 feet across 4th Street for future replacement of 6-inch north on Poplar. Cleaned lift stations. For Public Works, we completed chip and seal preparation repairs on Liberty and 8th Street. A few pictures of cleaning up storm damage in parks and cemeteries and restriping of the downtown parking area. Some upcoming events, reminder, Tuesday, August 4th will be National Night Out and Parade of Lights. Surf and Safari, a tribute to Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys at OMA on Saturday, July 25th at 7 p.m. And then remind everyone and encourage everyone to get out to the Franklin County Fair this week. Open City Board positions, Accessibility Advisory Board. There is one opening on that board for a city resident. That would be a 3-year term. Boarding of Zoning Appeals has one opening for a city resident on a 3-year term. And then Construction Board of Appeals, there are 2 openings. One of those must be for an electrician, and one of those must be for an HVAC contractor. They must be a licensed contractor, must work within city limits, and those terms are on a 4-year basis. So you can apply online. There's a QR code here, or go to www.ottawaks.gov/government. Applicants will interview at the city commission level. These voluntary positions and serve without compensation. And any questions, you can email City of Ottawa at ottawaks.gov. Tentative items for the meeting next week are the monthly reports for the finance department, monthly reports for community partners, a proclamation recognizing Access Awareness Day, make my move update from the Chamber of Commerce, public hearings for 641 South Main and 1017 South Ash, and then consideration of Ottawa Municipal Airport runway extension agreement. That'll take any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for our city manager or staff?
Can I see those condemnations one more time? Back up just one. Very good, thank you.
Any additional comments or questions?
Nope.
Thank you. Moves us on to item 13, comments by the governing body. Commissioner Allen,
I have no comment.
Commissioner Van Layden.
I would just encourage everybody to get out to the Franklin County Fair. 4-H kids put a lot of work into those exhibits, and they really appreciate people coming out and looking at them and talking to them. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Skidmore.
Just real quick, I see Chairman, or I guess Director Chartier already left with their board member, but I just want to thank the library. They could easily claim up to 10 mills, and they choose not to, and I appreciate their willingness to keep their budget in line and ask for the same mill rate as last year. So I just want to thank them for their good stewardship of the funds.
Thank you. I have no additional comments. I do have a few announcements. July 22nd, we have a city commission meeting at 4 p.m. July 29th, we have a study session at 4 p.m. And August 5th, we have our city commission at 7 p.m., all here at City Hall. Is there anything else to come before the commission? If not, I'll adjourn.